Mnemonics. These can be handy little buggers. You know, it's a word or a phrase or a system that allows you to easily recall a word, a phrase, or colors of the rainbow. Dog training is rife with mnemonics. Greetings, Sue McGuire here. On this episode of Learning About Dogs, Kay Laurence and I look at a mnemonic device that can sometimes get us into trouble. It's the 3Ds: distance, duration, distraction, and for some people, there's even a fourth D: difficulty, helpful, or just a crutch. I mean, they're handy at times. That's how I remembered the strings on a guitar. You know, but the order is E, A, G. Every good boy does well. Good. No, there's no W. You know, they're
Yeah.
ways to remember things. You have a few.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then you have to think about why they're set up. I think the only one I can think off the top of my head was the colours of the rainbow, which was Richard of York gives baths in vinegar. And I'm thinking, when would I ever need to know that? You know, you're not going to sit an exam and somebody say to you, "What's the colours of the rainbow?" It's not like, you know.
Yeah.
So some of these are. The one I probably do remember is necessary, which is one collar and two socks.
What is that one?
To spell necessary.
Oh, okay.
One collar and two socks.
Okay.
Mnemonics, yeah, they're good to probably prompt you to remember something that has no logical way of remembering it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like the sergeant wears a serge suit. That's how I remember how to spell sergeant.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't even know if sergeants do wear serge suits, but whatever.
But to get that extra E in the surge.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so we have ways of remembering something where it is purely, I think, a function of memory that something is right and something is wrong. But probably if we studied ancient Greek and knew about how the origins of these words came together, we wouldn't need these mnemonics to be able to remember if we knew what the root of the words were in the first place.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know what the root of sergeant is, but there's probably something behind there that tells you why it's spelt that way. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's how we do prefixes, suffixes. That's, it helps you understand the root of the word.
Yeah. Where something comes from, like ology is the study of, or the ancient Greek, blah, blah, blah. So I don't remember. I mean, I did it for a term at school, but I don't remember much of it. But I can see the point of learning those classics. Yes.
Okay. So in dog training, we have some of those, don't we?
But again, it's going to simple rote. You know, two things there. One is, you've got to use simple rote because, they don't need to know why this is so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. They just need to remember it. So do I need to know why necessary is spelled a certain way, or why sergeant is spelled a certain way, or why the colours of the rainbow, blah, blah, blah? Well, I think the minute you understand why, you don't need to have these mnemonics to help you remember it. And the sort of culture of find something that dumbs it down is just too traditionally old-fashioned format that, no, don't worry your head about that, just the 3Ds. This makes it much different with dogs because dogs are stupid, and we've all been told dogs are stupid, so we must believe dogs are stupid. And I don't know how you can train that sort of dog. It's stubborn. And I think 20 years ago that was like, no, come on, let's get out of this mindset that dogs are stubborn. We're moving into positive reinforcement where it opened up learning for all dogs, not just the ones that were easy to train. Yeah, and if it did nothing, it brought us to be able to adapt how we perceive dogs learn things. And then we're still having these dumbing down things, the Ds, I mean, I don't know how many Ds there are nowadays, to help people understand or do training better if they follow these simplistic guides. Click and treat. Well, yeah, it's not a treat. One of my clients brought up the term that she doesn't like to use the word treat because it implies that what you're giving the dog is something extra and above. No. it's normal. It's like good manners are a treat. No, they're
Hmm.
not. If I
Yes.
say thank you, you've done something good. It shouldn't be regarded as a treat. Click and reward.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, and even at some of the early expos, we were struggling desperately trying to get people to see affection could follow a click. Yes,
Yes.
or play could follow a click. Yeah, but when do you give the food? Before the affection or after the affection? No, no, because they've got stuck in this rule, yes, and as opposed to being a guide. And I think the minute we start to get ruled by what might seem as a simplistic guide to start with, it stops us from moving forward. It's the original glass box we get stuck in. And
Right.
I think the more now we need to grow up and say, no, no, people are perfectly intelligent. If they can drive to a dog training class, they can understand what we're talking about. And giving them understanding and explanation, I think, is respectful as opposed to, you know, these easy throw it away phrases that help people out. I think is disrespectful.
Well, let's talk about some of them because you and I were both viewing a video a couple of weeks ago, and we saw one of the most famous ones on a board behind this person, and we went, "Oh, there it is." And so, I mean, I we were arguing a little bit whether 4Ds or 3Ds. Um, we talked about, and I see that I walk into training rooms where I work, and I see them duration, distraction, distance, and that fourth one, difficulty. And I thought, well, that's a fourth D I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, yeah,
Difficulty for whom?
yeah.
Why is that one so dangerous?
Well, I think it's this dumbing down again. So, okay, so why is distance harder?
Yeah,
Well,
why?
firstly, if we understood a bit more about how proximity for a dog can be used as a reinforcer, um, and one of my Gordon bitches are the dominant sex in that breed, no doubt about it. If the bitches say something, the dogs comply. So if Mabel was sitting there admiring the sunshine and having a jolly good day in the sun, and one of the boys was just within 10 feet, she would just take a breath, rotate her head slowly, swivel her eyes round, and look at him. He'd be down the bottom of the garden. She only had to look and she could move them off. And I thought, oh, I wish I could do that. And I remember sitting on the sofa. Another Gordon was sitting by the side of me, and I was raising the sandwich to my mouth, and she came across to intervene. And I just held my breath and turned and looked at her, and she left the room extremely fast. And I thought, ooh, people can do it as well. Well, you
Mm.
know, teenage girls can. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they can give that boy the look that just turns them to dust within seconds. So that whole aspect of pushing a dog away from you for a dog that wants to be near you would be inherently aversive. So when we want to do something at a distance, we would have to work extremely hard to make sure that the dog never perceived that as they've done something wrong. But you know,
Yeah.
we see this. We ask the dog to stay and walk away from it. No, you stay there. And they go, oh my God, I'm sorry, what have I done
Oops.
wrong? And they will try to come towards us. They don't go,
Yes, they
yeah,
will.
whatever, sort yourself out. So if we're asking the dog to do something at a distance, one, for dogs, that could be a completely confusing message, i.e., I don't like you anymore, stay out there. And two, in their history of click and food training, certainly, most of our food is delivered at the end of our hand. So they don't have any experience that rewards are going to happen at 6 foot, 10 foot. They're only used to rewards happening next to the person. So there's that conditioned um, response that if they learn to sit, they sit in front of you. And if you
Yes.
try to teach them to sit by your side, they will often try to come back to the front because where they learn to behavior is part of the contingencies that make that behavior successful. So this is often why it's tricky to get the dog to sit to heel, and they'll often rotate round the front of you because two things. One, that's where they learnt it, and that's where the reinforcers were delivered for that behavior. So if I want the dog to sit in a different place, maybe behind me or to my side, or to do anything in a different place, first thing, do you know you can get rewards here as well? Oh, cool. Can you do the sit there as well? Yeah, no problem. End of problem. So to see distance as a difficulty is not a difficulty. It's about teaching people what is likely to make something difficult, and then working on the positive side where we set them up to be successful. So if I want my dogs to do something sitting in the back of the car while I take 5 steps away, I have to establish that back of the car is a place where reinforcement has a very reliable, strong, worthwhile history. And then you put them in the back of the car and you say, lie down. Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
But in their experience, where's the most rewarding place? Out the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was nothing to do with the distance. It was in that dog's experience, in this place, I don't get as many rewards. This is not the place I learnt this behavior. And if you push me away or move away from me, then I can completely misinterpret that I've done something wrong.
Yes. And I see that.
So distance, no.
Okay.
Duration.
What
Now,
comes
duration
first?
is
What
not the
comes
same
first?
as durable, although it might have the same derivative behavior. Root source language. Duration, we be able to sustain something for longer. And I divide this into 2 areas, i.e. duration of stillness or duration of activity. So duration of activity, we have to be sure the dog has the physical strength and energy to be able to sustain the movement for longer. So if you taught the dog, say, what type of movements, say we're talking about trotting, let's just even take it off heel work, and my dog can do a lovely trot over 6 steps of his stride and get reinforcement, super. Can I repeat that 50 times for 50 reinforcers, one by one? Do another 6, get another piece of food. Do another 6, get another piece of food. And I will measure out the food and I will check that I can do that for 50. If it's the first time the dog's been training this, I could probably do it for 5. If it's the 8th time the dog's been training this, I could probably do it for 20. But at some point, the dog's going to get tired.
Yes.
So if I want the dog to be able to do 10 steps of that reinforcement, I would want to know they can do 50 in batches of 5 and get reinforcement for each batch of those 5. So you've got to be able to build the physical fitness to do something before we can actually ask them to do something for longer for a single reinforcer. And this is often where trying to get duration fades, because people will tend to go into wanting something for longer without having built the physical structure to be able to do it for longer in the first place.
Well,
so it starts to become harder. It starts to become harder. You know, the same as if you're doing something physical like weightlifting. Yep.
So the classic way I see it is, they want the sit to last longer.
But that's duration of non-movement. That's different.
Right. And how is that different? I mean, so
stillness is the ability to not respond to your environment.
Yeah.
That's entirely different. The outcome might be duration, but teaching a dog to be able to stand at your side with stillness, I would say most people can't even do that. If you ever travel through an airport and you come around the corner and you look at the queues to get through past, oh God, you really do have to practice stillness. Yep. So that is like teaching people how to be still within themselves. Of course, dogs can do duration for stillness. If they're watching something and waiting for a mouse to come out of a hole, they will be still for 40 minutes without moving. It's a natural predatory behavior. But we're not using the right type of stimulus to cause the behaviors we want. So if we want to relax stillness, we have to be able to be still ourselves. So if the environment around the dog is with stillness, the dog will learn stillness and we can reinforce that stillness. If the environment is active, it's extremely hard, especially for a young dog, to not be able to respond to movement in the environment, because they are creatures of responding to movement in the environment. And if we want predatory stillness, that is stillness in anticipation of action, then use predatory behavior. That's entirely different stillness. That's not duration of not moving. So if I've thrown a toy and I want the dog to stand still, I will build it up that, oh my goodness, look, aren't you going to go get it? Yeah, and when this youngster, because it's a juvenile, they'll want to chase it straight away. And most juveniles chasing a bird on the ground will learn very quickly it flies away. It goes down the rabbit hole. That's not very good. How can I get closer so that I can use my sprint? If I stand here quite still and move extremely slowly so that my prey doesn't see me, I can get there to kill it. So it's just a question of using the natural occurrence of stillness, which is an anticipation of kill, or hiding. That's not an avenue we're going to go down, because we're not trying to teach a dog to be so petrified it doesn't move. But that's not duration. That is a stillness. It's again, this word duration it's a mislabeling, so people think the dog has got to endure something for longer.
Yes.
Make it more difficult. I will teach 7-week-old, 8-week-old puppies to be perfectly still for a good 30 seconds while they're watching a piece of food dance on the floor. You're going to watch it, and you flick it across the room. They will go perfectly still. So that's not a difficult thing to teach. And what was the third one?
We were talking
my favorite, distractions. So these are terminology that we've inherited from traditional slap and bang training and tried to use the same, dare I say it, dumbness for today's training, which is reinforcement based with some intelligence. It's not just about being a reinforcement trainer. It's about using what we've learned over the last 20 or 30 years and saying, no, we know better now. We don't need to use these terms. People don't need to be told that dogs are stupid and they can't learn any other way. So a distraction tends to imply that everything I'm doing is more important than the rest of the environment. Yep. Yeah. So that anything else, if I want you to do this, everything else is a distraction to what I want. My agenda is the only important thing here. Pay attention, watch me. And if I was a dog, I'd go, why? Because I'm going to give you cookies, and cookies are going to go flying up in the air. Do you think you're going to catch one? Oh, yeah. Now I have motivated the dog to want to focus on me, not have to. And then I say, do you want to go and chase that butterfly? No, because you're going to throw cookies. Exactly. So a distraction is a cue for another opportunity for reward. But if my reward is insufficient, then if the dog is able to be distracted from my reward by these other things around, then I need to shape up. I need to find a better reward under those conditions. So a distraction is information to me that what I'm offering is insufficient in this environment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not a question of he shouldn't look at that. If you're so freaking boring, they're going to look at that. They're going to want to respond to that.
Yeah. I think it's challenging because over and over again, you have to be more interesting than the squirrel. Well, maybe you're defining this incorrectly.
A squirrel is not a distraction. What is a squirrel? It's a cue. It's a movement, which is a cue with an opportunity to chase. Yep.
Yeah.
So, does the dog have enough opportunities to satisfy their predatory chase reflex? So if you were going to walk a dog through a field of sheep, especially sheep with lambs that are flitting and dancing and jumping around, blah, 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 would you expect your dog not to go, whoa, wow, look at all this lot? Of course not. It's going to want to look at all this lot. It's going to want to move. It's going to want to go here. It's going to want to go there. Yeah. So we wouldn't walk the dog through that field and expect it not to be distracted. We wouldn't ask for something else under those conditions until we've actually taught it how to do it. Mm-hmm. So, it's like saying, I tell you what, go to Los Angeles Airport, and if you hear a gunfire, don't lie down on the floor. It's just gunfire. It's just distraction. Don't worry about it. Focus on getting to your gate. You are going to react to it. Yes. You're going to say, oh my God, and you're going to try and find somewhere to hide, move, or get out of the way because that is a threat to you. Well, the squirrel running up the tree is a stimulus that the dog is just responding to because it's a dog.
Yes.
Yes, and we can no more ask it to not be a dog But have we trained it to be able to watch something like that and say, I tell you what, if you stood perfectly still while that squirrel moved, you'd stand a better chance of catching it. But why don't you catch this squirrel instead of that squirrel? And this squirrel is under my control, and we get to do it together.
Yes. I have to tell you that this quick story from my past. I used to do this. I used to teach my dogs to watch squirrels, and I would be still and we'd watch them together. And I kid you not, Kay, this is probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was at a competition obedience venue. It was outdoors. There were redwood trees in the venue,
Mhm.
and there were squirrels in the redwood trees. And I got the absolute most beautiful sit at the side whilst watching squirrels together in the competition ring.
Yes, yes,
We looked at it together
yeah.
and we moved on together. It was just beautiful. I
I
could
mean,
see my girl.
yeah.
Yeah.
I I think I was visiting somewhere in Canada, and we're walking down the street with this Labrador that wasn't very walking like yeah. And I went, "Oh my good lord, what the hell was that just went up that tree?" So those are our squirrels. Oh my goodness, they're enormous. I've never seen a squirrel that big before. I mean, goodness me. Um, but it, the whole distraction thing. So if I had a sheepdog working sheep, and a rabbit or a hare breaks between the dog and the sheepdog will not respond.
Interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
the predatory control, i.e., they couldn't be good predators if they're in the middle of the first kill they've had the opportunity of for the last 5 days, and oh look, there's a butterfly. If they because every time they get distracted, they lose the opportunity to eat. They're going to learn to not get distracted. So we've bred the dogs that can stay fixated is the other extent of that on one thing for a very short time. Now, what I tend to notice is that we do the same with this. So when we teach this in the barn, to me, a distraction is just another opportunity for reinforcement. So um, if I drop food on the floor when you're in the middle of training, and your dog says, "Oh, I'll have some of that, I'll go over to it," then we know that what you are potentially offering is of lesser value than what I'm offering immediately now. So we would train out of shopping, the shopping protocol where
Hmm.
my box food is on the side of the unit. I step 6 feet away. I ask for my behavior. Excellent. Let's go shopping. We teach the dog to travel 6 feet from where we are to where the reinforcers are. In that period of travel, I will offer the dog other opportunities of reinforcement. But because I've already said or clicked, let's go get your treat, the dog is focused on moving to the shop to go and get the actual treat. If in that short 3 or 4 second journey, and while I'm opening the pot, somebody else's food is of more value, then I know traveling to that reinforcer was insufficient value to the dog to do it. Rarely see that because the dogs know the click comes and yeah, I'm going to stick with you because we're heading off to go and get the best sausage or a chase or something that's worthwhile. They're conditioned to stay with us when they hear the click. So we would train this several times and we start extending the gap between the click and traveling to go and get the reinforcer. The minute the click happens, the reinforcement process has started and the dog chooses to stay with the reinforcement process that I have promised is reliable and will pay off. It might not be as good as a squirrel, but what tends to happen is we travel. I'll have somebody else there with a toy that's whizzing around on the carpet. We go to my treat station. We get my reward out. They get my reward, and I say, "Cool, do you want to do another behavior?" Boom! They're off to go play with the squirrel. So they knew the squirrel was there,
Mm-hmm.
but they chose to come with me to get the reinforcers. So that distraction squirrel was delayed. They were able to delay their response to it until they'd actually had my reinforcer.
Yes.
If I'd been sharper off the ball, I would have given the cue for the next behavior. But the minute their reinforcer has been delivered and they had finished that reinforcer, they would choose to go and say hello to that person or see what that dog's doing. So they're aware of these other opportunities all the time, but they're choosing to stay with the behavior we're asking for because our reinforcer is more reliable, it pays off better, and it's what they're seeking. So to have something that's a distraction, to me, just says then we possibly need to look at the reinforcement process better.
Yes.
How can we make what you're offering not just a manky old bit of sausage that's got fluff on it, or a dry piece of kibble that's been in your pocket for 4 weeks, and make it something more worthwhile? And often we just have to learn far more about the reward process, and then the distraction issues. Yeah, I've never had a distraction issue.
Yeah.
Not a problem. And we have
Difficulty.
squirrels and
Yes.
rats. Oh
Yes.
boy.
So
And I'm
much
even
fun.
saying to my dog, look, it's a rat. And she's going, yeah, you got biscuit then? Bloody, look, it's a rat. Go chase the rat, please. No, no,
Please
no.
take care of it, please.
No, no. The collies will sit there and watch a rat walk across the floor.
No.
Throw the ball. No. Yeah. So, yeah, it's the two things. It's the mindset that comes behind needing to use these quick fix words. It's the mindset that hasn't moved on to where we are now. Second decade, third decade in the 21st century is not what we were doing in the 1980s. It's that dogs can learn much, much better than we ever thought they could when they invented these 3Ds. People are not as... It's one of these things, it's like when I had a driving lesson, it was tradition on the 17th birthday you'd go and have 6 driving lessons. Taking driving lessons from family can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I don't recommend
So I
it.
went off and I sat next to this guy who told me about whoopsie teas and tipsy teas.
Okay, what are those?
And I probably gave him the Mabel look, and I thought, I beg your pardon, T-junctions.
Oh, like
So they can be
intersections?
whoopsie teas or tipsy teas. And I got home that night and I said, I do not want driving lessons. Do you understand? He was dumbing it down because I'm only a woman, and let's make it childlike, and let's treat her like she's too stupid to know anything else. So I think the word is patronizing. Yes. So
Yes.
some T-junctions may be angled as such that you cannot see the traffic coming. Fine, let's call it that, not tipsy teas and whoopsie teas. Yeah, with me. It's like, I don't want to tell you what he thought the clutch should be called and all the rest of it. It was just awful. You'd think he was teaching a 6-year-old child. So I've never found that people don't want to know.
Yeah.
And I've taught classes over 40 years. People don't know what they don't want to know. But if you're interested in the science that underlies what we do, if you're interested in how dogs behave and why pushing them away from you, yes, or physically distancing yourself from a dog can make them feel very unhappy and insecure. If you've got a dog, that's interesting information. Oh, so if I teach my dog to stay and I have to walk away from it, as they do in obedience, which was designed back in the 50s to show dominance that man can have over dog, yep, I have to completely change. If I have to do this exercise with the dogs, I've completely got to change the understanding that this is not about me punishing you. This is not about me dismissing you and wanting to walk away from you. This is not about me showing off that I can make you do anything I want you to do. I can ask my dogs to walk backwards half the length of the football pitch. And to them, it's like, well, yeah, whoopee, because when I've got halfway back, that frisbee is going to come sailing out at me. Yep, so it's worth their while doing it, and they love to do it. It's a pleasure for them to do it. It's not a get from me. So it's just bringing ourselves forwards, not trying to shackle ourselves to old ways of thinking.
Excellent. Difficulty.
Somebody's going to say whoopsie teas and difficulties.
I know. I'm going to say. I'm going to go look that up.
I think the guy was probably a bit tipsy. That was the trouble. There's no way he should have been in a car, let alone teaching people how to drive. But I never forgot it. Difficulty. Okay, so this is not about distance and distraction and duration being more difficult. It's about teaching people to recognize that the dog is finding something difficult. So if I ask a certain dog to sit, she would find it difficult. She doesn't sit very often. It rarely happens by choice. So she would look stubborn or difficult type of dog. Or you might teach another type of dog that I want you to lie down as an immediate drop where the spine stays level with the floor, not a sit plop. Oh, he finds it difficult. What does difficult look like? Yeah, what is that behavior? Oh, well, the dog struggles a bit, or he easily gets distracted by what other people are doing. Then you change the way you're teaching, change what you're asking. And that to me is the skill that's missing, is teaching people how to recognize your dog is struggling. Your dog can't do this. Your dog doesn't understand. You're making it too difficult. How can we make it easier? How can we set them up to be successful?
Yeah. I think that comes from people thinking that dogs need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that not necessarily.
Dogs don't need to spell.
No.
I couldn't give a toodle whether there's one collar or two socks in necessary, but
Are they
no,
wearing
but it is, oh, I have to do this exercise and that exercise. Why?
Yeah. Right.
It's like saying, okay, so don't stick your finger in the electric socket. Why? It's going to hurt. Why? Oh, okay, let me show you what electricity does to you, then you won't do it again. Yeah, okay, get that now.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So understanding why something happens. We don't need to understand that gravity works all the time, but it's how many things do we need to? Oh, I'm not going to do that again because if I do that, then that happens. We learn the consequences of our own actions. We then don't need to learn rhymes to stop us taking these consequences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a health or safety issue that you need to say at some time, I will explain to you the full implications of how electricity goes through your body and what it destroys when it does it. For the moment, I'll protect you from doing it, so I'll set you up to be successful. But if you want to know why, yeah, let's spend some time looking at it.
Yeah, empowering people to understand why. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, I just started some fairly new classes, and I'm just putting it out there. As I'm assuming not too many of you are interested in competition obedience. Good for you.
And
Let's
why?
do.
Why obedience?
Yeah.
Why is that a status to have a
Why
dog
is?
that sits when you tell it or a dog that
Yeah.
comes when you call it? Okay, so why is a recall so difficult? The
Yeah.
recall is easy. It doesn't get much
Easy.
harder. You just say, hey, I have a squirrel in my pocket. Do you want it? Yeah, the dog will come. The hard bit is breaking away from what they are already doing.
Yes. Yeah.
But I was just going to kill that rabbit. And you said, come. And you didn't have a sausage when I got there. So I'm not going to do
No.
that next time.
Yeah.
Ah. In actual fact, the more we take the time to say, let me explain to you why we can house train a puppy, but we can't house train a lamb or a crocodile or a parrot. Let me explain to you why this works. And the more we start to fill in why things happen, people will have the confidence to ask more questions. Why do we have to teach the dog sit? What an excellent question. You don't have to teach the dog sit at all. What I'd like you to learn is how to lure the dog.
Yes.
Oh, now you can lure
Okay.
anything you like, but if you learn to lure the dog through a movement or round a chair or under a chair or in a straight line or through your legs or over a pole, you will be able to observe how dogs follow, how they move, what shape their bodies look like.
Yeah.
So
There you
it
go.
wasn't about teaching to sit, it was about learning how to lure the dog to do something.
Hmm.
Okay, it's about the skills of luring.
Yes.
It wasn't about me, I can dominate my dog and show you it's obedient. Not anymore, thank you. I would feel, I feel I've wasted 40 years if somebody stood and looked at my dogs and said, oh, they're very obedient, aren't they?
Oh, I know.
No, but can I
Mm.
call them away from a tractor? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But to have an obedient dog to me implies a dog that doesn't bark. It's usually shut down. It's often depressed. It'll only do what it's told to do and it won't do anything creative. And probably not have a lot of fun at the same time.
Mm.
That is not the same as doing competition obedience, which is, the exhibition of the obedience exercises. And I don't know how it's going in the States, but over here it's dying by numbers.
Yeah, it is. It's not. Yeah.
There's not a lot fulfilling in just having a dog on your left because your firearm's on your right. Well, whoopee. But do I need a dog at times to walk by my side as the horses are going along? Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even sheepdog trials, so many people look at that and go, wow, clever sheepdogs. Yeah, but no, it's not real. None of this is the real job anymore. Yeah, none of this is the real job. So sports dog stuff is sports dog stuff. It's not a reflection on how we actually live with dogs.
No, they're not. Mm-mm. Yeah, and sometimes these sports dogs are hard to live with. So.
Well, that's again another thing. People are breeding a certain type of dog that might be easy to train up for sports because they're super reactive and they'll do everything very fast and they can bite everything on the go and they can bark for England. And they make great dogs for sports. House dogs, then we have to spend most of the time teaching them how to be house dogs.
Yeah. And where do they spend most of their life? Being house dogs.
Absolutely. Especially in this day and age.
Yes. Yes. Oh, good. I'm so glad we pulled that one apart because that's been one of my...
So we'll have to use the Facebook group for people that know the 3Ds are something I never saw them in classes over here. It might have been something I read in a book once 20, 30 years ago, but I've not seen them in classes over here. But I'm sure there are lots of other mnemonics in training and otherwise that we could just demolish or adopt. But let's ask why. Where the hell did that originate and why?
Yeah. Never heard that one. Okay. Let's look at that one in detail. Why was
Richard of York gives baths in vinegar.
I have never heard that one.
Red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, blue, violet. There we are.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Look at all these years it's stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the point of it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I can't think when I ever needed to know that. When would I need to know what the colours of the rainbow are?
Well, yeah, especially when you see a rainbow, you go, well, there are the colors. Mnemonics are handy only if you have done your research as to their value. Do not accept these at face value and expect your dog to deal. Looking for some great learning? Take a look at the episode notes for upcoming classes. Thanks so much for listening to Learning About Dogs.